Hello and welcome to my new ESL MiniLesson series. Each lesson will briefly cover one essential element in English as a second language learning. This lesson covers the passive voice. The passive voice is a necessary evil. On the one hand, because it uses the verb to be, it makes for a very weak sounding sentence and should be avoided, especially by fiction writers. On the other hand, there are some cases where you want to make the object of a verb stand out, or you don't need or want to say who did an action. That's where the passive voice comes in. Instead of the traditional subject-verb arrangement of a sentence, the object of the sentence comes first. The original verb becomes the conjugated to be verb plus a participle. And the original subject becomes the agent and goes at the end of the sentence preceded with the word by. Here's a graphic representation, first of a standard sentence and then a passive sentence. If you follow the colors, you can see how things get rearranged. Let's take a little deeper look at exactly how an active sentence can become passive. Let's take a simple sentence like doctors use penicillin. Doctors is the subject, the verb is use, and the object is penicillin. The object, penicillin, moves over into the first position. The verb splits into two parts, the verb to be and a participle of the original verb from the active sentence. In our case, use becomes is used because use is in the present tense and the present third person form of to be is. The original subject, doctors, becomes the agent. It goes at the end of the sentence preceded with the word by. And thus, the active sentence, doctors use penicillin, becomes the passive sentence, penicillin is used by doctors. When a verb takes two objects, verbs such as give, show, ask, offer, and many more, two passive structures are possible. A passive sentence using the direct object, the object that directly receives the action of the verb, and a passive sentence using the indirect object, the object which receives the direct object. Take, for example, the active sentence, I gave the book to Ted. Book is the direct object, Ted the indirect object. From that, we can form two passive sentences. The direct passive, the book was given to Ted, and the indirect passive, Ted was given the book. Now you notice here that I did not use the original subject I, or what we call the agent, at the end of the sentence. The agent is not always necessary, especially when it's a pronoun like me, them, us, etc. Now we know how the passive is structured, and I give you a few examples. So, when do we use a passive structure? First, we use the passive in place of sentences with generalized subjects. For example, instead of saying they speak German in Germany, we say German is spoken in Germany. Other examples, dollars are used in the US, bananas are grown in the Canary Islands, or Apple products are exported all over the world. When the person or thing that receives an action is more important than who or what does the action, we use the passive. You'll see this a lot on the news. Instead of saying Columbia University gave the president an honorary degree, the news will report it as the president was given an honorary degree by Columbia University. When we don't need to, want to, or can't mention the subject, we use the passive. Anyone who's come home and found their TV and stereo missing knows how to say, I've been robbed. Finally, when writing medical articles, most of the action is done by doctors. So it seems a bit foolish to start every sentence with, the doctors did this to the patient, the doctors did that to the patient. Usually in medical articles, the patient's diseases, diagnostic methods, and treatments take precedence over everything else. Hence, 200 cc's of sulfonylurea was given to the patient, or 125 patients were chosen from inpatient admissions. However, when writing the discussion section of a medical article, the active is used. For example, our investigation team determined that this condition had not previously been described. Do not use the passive in fiction or nonfiction writing. In fact, if you keep the grammar checker on when you write in Microsoft Word, all kinds of alarms go off when you write a passive sentence. The reason for this is that passive sentences use the verb to be. It's the weakest verb in the English language because it expresses only that something exists. There is no energy, no action, no excitement in the verb to be, and should therefore be avoided like the plague if you want to keep a reader's interest. As an interesting note to this, there's a literary movement called E-prime. The authors of books using E-prime avoid the use of the verb to be completely. Thanks for attending this mini lesson on the passive voice. I hope I've given you at least a basic idea of how it works. And I hope to do many more of these mini lessons in the future, so keep an eye out for them by visiting my site, petermandaracina.com.